In week number 6, I'm going to be recording a number of lectures, a number of online lectures that are going to focus on environmental art in not only in Melbourne but also in the world. Environmental art, as you now know because we've been talking about it occasionally over the last couple of weeks, is work that is embedded within the environment. So more often than not, it actually is created with natural objects. Wood and leaves, feathers, even using streams and lakes, and it's embedded into the environment so that these artworks work with the environment, and more often than not they actually become part of the environment to the extent where they start to degrade and start to return to the earth. And it's a very popular and it's a very rich way of working with materials, and it's something that can be used in your classroom in many different ways. There are a number of environmental artworks in Melbourne which are absolutely stunning, and it'd be worth you knowing where to find them. So the purposes of these online lectures for week 6 are actually they're about giving you some information and giving some clues as to where you can find these environmental artworks, so that when you come to use them in your own teaching, you'll know where to go. Now, in Melbourne itself, we actually have a fantastic resource. Now, it's quite difficult to get to, but with a little bit of investigation and a little bit of innovative thinking, you can get there. And this place is Herring Island. And Herring Island is actually in the Yarra River, and it is it's just below Alexandra Parade. So it's as you approach the end of the Botanical Gardens, it's just there near the Como Park. And it's an island that was formed out of, it was a man-made island, and it's had various different purposes over the last couple of centuries, but it's now an environmental park. And not only does it have a sort of a burgeoning native wildlife population, but it also has a burgeoning environmental artworks population. And there are some very influential and key names who have actually produced work there, by the very nature of the fact that it's an island, the work remains there. It remains relatively untouched, but it is this absolutely gold resource that not many people know about. But if you're going to be looking at environmental artwork or ephemeral artwork in your classroom, it's an absolutely must location for you to go to. And Andy Goldsworthy, who we saw in week number 5, you remember from the little YouTube video, he was the artist who had created a circular sculpture out of sticks and twigs and logs that he'd found on a beach, and then he allowed the tide to come in and out and actually remove that artwork. So if you think about that, he's using natural materials, so he's using wood that he's found on a beach, so it's been put on the beach via a natural process of tidal movement. He's created a very natural shape, this sort of circular shape with a hole in the middle that has these connotations of a home, of a house, of refuge, and somewhere where people live. But if you think about it, the natural lifespan does have a finite ending, and so as the tide came in and started to move the twigs away, it's almost as though this place of safety, this place of dwelling, is removed and disappears away from us. On Herring Island, there are 2 main pieces of work by Andy Goldsworthy. I suppose the most stunning one is Stonehouse, and this is a collection of local rock that has been embedded into an embankment. And so Goldsworthy actually wants you to have a look at it from a distance rather than go up close. I mean, and that's not to say you don't go up close, but if you look at it from a distance, it has this very calm, safe feeling about it. And it's not a sculpture that is meant to be cleaned on a daily basis and kept pristine. Goldsworthy actually wants the vegetation to move in and start to take it over. And now that it's been there for a few years, that's what is beginning to happen. In week 5, I also showed you some work by an English artist called Anish Kapoor, who rubbed pigment into stone and created that effect, that sort of illusionary effect. Is there a space there or is there not a space there? And if you have a look at this image now, where you have this sort of almost boulder sitting in its crevice, in its sort of lair, you can see that you're beginning to get that sense of where's the space going, what is the space for, Was it created naturally? Was it created by man? Obviously this was created by man, but if you have a look at it, it could be the strata in rocks, it could be any number of things. Goldsworthy also created this piece of artwork called Cairn, which is on Herring Island. Now Cairn is one of a series of works that Goldsworthy has produced, and all over the world he's produced these cairns, and they symbolise, I suppose, the cairns that you find in Scotland, which were to do with memory and to do with ownership in a way. And whilst it's not an environmental piece of work in the sense that it has anything obviously living on it, and obviously there would be lichens and there'd be little reptiles and insects and things living in it, but it fits in very beautifully with this idea of being natural and of being from the earth. So it's not an eyesore. It's not it's not made out of plastic. It's not being fed by electricity. It is it's a very natural looking object. If you think back to the Mark Quinn head sculpture made out of blood, and this is where sculpture is very different. The Mark Quinn head made out of blood, which is frozen, it's made out of a very natural product, and without it we wouldn't survive. But it's fed by electricity in order to survive. Now if you have a look at this image and you have a look in the background, you'll see that there are some very sort of straight looking pieces of wood that almost look like a fence that's sort of fallen over. And indeed this is a work by John Collins, and it's called Falling Fence. And again, it's wood that has been hewn by man, so it's not like the Andy Goldsworthy where he picked up his wood from the beach. This wood has been cut into that particular shape by man-made equipment. But the idea is that this fence begins to become part of the environment. So as you look at it, it does take on the appearance of a fence that has fallen over, but it's also beginning to embed itself into the environment. So vegetation is taking it over. The angles of the posts will probably become more and more extreme as time goes on and as they begin to fall over. So it's this idea of following the contour of the landscape, following the contour of the island, following the contour of the existing vegetation, and becoming one with the actual environment. And then we have Robert Jacks, who also is on Herring Island, and he has produced this piece of work called Ramp, and it's made out of very sort of roughly hewn wood, and it has this sense of robust, solid tree trunks bursting through the ground. And you can see that actually vegetation is also growing through on this one. So unlike the Andy Goldsworthy one, which is very ephemeral, so it's very beholden to acts of nature, this one is very permanent, as in the Collins one beforehand, the fence. This is very permanent, but it still has that element of slowly becoming one with nature. So, the very fact that they're created out of natural objects makes them beautiful to look at. They have very natural looking colours. There's nothing sort of too untoward on the eye when you look at them. So where is Herring Island? Herring Island, as I've already explained, is an island on the banks of the Yarra River. You can get to it by boat sometimes. There's a little sort of shuttle ferry that will take you there. If you have your own boat, you can get there. Otherwise, you're pretty much stuck. But if you have a look at their website, which is Herring Island, let me just find it. Here we go, which is this here. So home.vicnet.net.au/herring. That is the homepage for the Herring Island Environmental Park, and it's well worth going to have a look at it to see what you can find there. So if we just go back to this YouTube video here, it's not the most exciting YouTube video, and it's a home video. But if you just watch this, it will take you through the park, and it'll take you through some of the actual sculpture. Now, if you go onto Blackboard and have a look at the visual arts folder, you'll see that I put in there the presentation for weeks 5 and 6, and there's a link to this this YouTube video on there.